Hello, friends. My name is Kamron Coleman, and I'm the creator of the Apotheosis Scroll. The Apotheosis Scroll is a monolithic artwork that's 300 feet long. I've spent many years and about 8,000 hours so far working on it. I'm an artist, an oil painter, and spray painter, and sculptor. And the Apotheosis Scroll is made up of hundreds of individual artworks, and it contains a handwritten essay that's book length. And I wanted to talk a little bit today about not just what it's about materially, but why I'm doing this. What is this thing about? It's basically about astronomy and how astronomy was the language that conveyed religion in the ancient times. If we're illiterate of astronomy, we're missing a lot of potential meaning as we study the scriptures. And the mythology of the scriptures can be a lot more profound and more deep if we understand the astronomical language behind the symbolism being used. So that's the point of the scroll. And I want to be clear because it can be a little bit confusing. You know, most people, when they talk about or write about Christianity, they're trying to make a case for what Christianity is, what it means, who created it. That's not my purpose. My purpose is to create a new Christian testament, a new Christian testimony that's my own, a creative endeavor that just comes from my imagination. In the first century, there were hundreds, if not thousands, of creative individual testimonies or testaments of Jesus, of the Christ, and they varied widely. And there was no orthodoxy. There was no ecclesiastical church in the first century that had doctrines and dogmas and bishops and leaders and all of these things developed over time. But in the first century, Christianity was a creative endeavor. It was very personal. It was revealed to people by visions, by experience, by study, by all kinds of different means. And so the result was extremely subjective. And I'm drawing on that. I'm contributing to that sort of testimony of Christ. I'm not interested in saying that this group created Christianity, or this group was the better Christians, or this group got it right. I just don't subscribe to any of that. I think that in part, 1/3 part, so to speak, of the New Testament is in fact a Roman government psyops project to assimilate rebel Jews into the Pax Romana, into the Roman body politic, lest they be completely massacred by the Roman government. The Jews, I learned only in the last year, were the largest minority in the whole Roman Empire. And so while they were the majority in Palestine, in Israel, there were a great many Jews all throughout the Roman Empire. They ran the gamut on how they expressed their religion. And many of them just assimilated very fluidly into Greek and Roman society and Egyptian society. And the point is that they weren't a monolith. And no one really was in those days. People had a mixture of religious perspective and experience. The New Testament reflects that. The New Testament in James, the James portion, reflects the Torah, reflects correct Jewish worship at the time. And Peter reflects what I consider the more Greek, ecclesiastical, civic administration of the Christian movement. And John, as I've said before, I think represents the mysteries of godliness, because I think that what's being represented in the book of Revelation is his initiation into the Roman mystery. Not only that, but it's partly that. And so what I try to get across whenever I talk about the Apotheosis Scroll is that it's not a dogma. I'm not choosing a side. I'm not saying this is what happened historically, but rather I'm trying to do what they did, express what I think the Christ is. Because the Christ has had a massive, major influence on my life. And I don't expect that experience to be repeated anywhere else on this planet, except in my heart and in my imagination. And as an artist, I have felt compelled to convey, at whatever cost and however much time it takes, my Christian experience. And it leans much further to the Gnostic side, to the subjective, artistic, spiritual side, than it does to any ecclesiastically administered sort of dogma or church or gospel. And I'm very sympathetic to the researchers who have pointed out that the New Testament really served Rome very well, and that there's a deliberate authorship in there that may be attributed to the Roman government or uh, some sort of activity on the part of the court to create and disseminate a, an element of the Christian gospel. I don't have a problem with that. To me, that's just fine. But I'm not cynical about it, and I don't think that it ruins or cancels any of the spiritual beauty that the Christian gospel has provided me. My primary interest in creating the Apotheosis Scroll is not to convey how to be saved by grace. It's not to convey any particular Christian ideology, to argue in favor of one or to polemicize against another. Rather, the way I see the Christian gospel is, as particularly identified in the New Testament, is as a conversation about the star prophecy. I see the star prophecy as having had a massive international impact around the year zero. And people were watching for centuries for a specific sign in the sky that indicated that the king of the world, the king of the age, had arrived. And that star prophecy is explained in one way in Numbers from the Old Testament. Numbers chapter 24, verse 17 says, I shall see him, but not now. I shall behold him, but not nigh. There shall come a star out of Jacob, and a scepter shall rise out of Israel. So the scepter is a great symbol. My interest and focus is on astronomy and biblical astronomy. And so what is this scepter being referred to? Well, it's the axis of the cosmos. In the Egyptian tradition, it's represented in an astoundingly profound way. The scepter of Ptah, Ptah, the Egyptian creator god, like Hephaestus of the Greeks, is holding the staff with two hands. And the staff is, the upper part of the staff, the scepter, is composed of three primary symbols. The top, which is shaped, has a swooping shape, is called Waz, and it represents the highest seal, the highest of seven seals. The one right below it is the upper part of the Ankh key, the Vesica Pisces, the eye shape. And then right below that is a tiered shape called the Jed. Well, in my research and in the Apotheosis Scroll, these three different elements correspond to the fifth, sixth, and seventh of seven seals. And the fifth seal being the Jed, which has to do with this part of the body, with the mouth, the ears, the throat, the top of the spinal cord, where resonance comes out and enters into the body. The sixth seal, which is the Ankh, the eye, is the overlapping of two circles to create the Vesica Pisces. And that Vesica Pisces, that almond shape, is the maternal matrix of creation from which all creation flows. It's also the eye and how light gets into the body. In the Ankh symbol, which is that Vesica Pisces on a cross, is a stylization of the human body. And so one who possesses the Ankh has the capacity to have a light-filled body and to create life from which all life springs. The Waz, that swooping shape, is sometimes stylized as an animal head, but what it's really representing in astronomy is the top part of what we call the Big Dipper. So the stars that create the handle and the upper part of the cup, that's the Waz. Which so when you stack these three together, you have passed through the veil of the Milky Way and into the Gemini constellation, then the Cancer constellation, which is the Ankh, and then the Leo constellation, which is the celestial kingdom, above which is what we call Ursa Major, and the Big Dipper's in Ursa Major. And what you have done is you have escaped from the ecliptic zodiac, and now you're ascending into the heavens, past Leo, the celestial kingdom, and up into exaltation near the center of the sky with the circumpolar stars, which is represented by the Big Dipper rotating around the celestial pole. So the Waz symbol is a symbol of exaltation above the mundane and one eternal round rotation of the zodiac, of the path of the sun through the zodiac along the ecliptic. And that Waz symbol on what we call the Big Dipper was known to the Egyptians as the thigh of the cow. And it is the thigh of the cow because the Big Dipper makes up the rear leg of an ancient constellation of Hathor, the cow, the Queen of Heaven. And I have re-identified that constellation speculatively and renamed it Bossi for the milk cow on the Coleman family farmstead. So what's the significance of this? The scepter that Ptah, is holding is topped with the Jed, the Ankh, and then the Waz. That's the scepter. And that scepter, because it contains those zodiacal constellations topped by the Waz, which is the exaltation, that scepter is representing the axle of the cosmos around which the cosmos turns. Because the body also has correspondence to those same seals, the Jed or Gemini being the throat, the mouth, the ears area, the Ankh, the eye, being the third eye and vision, and the pineal gland. The Waz then is above the head and crowns the head in a shape something like the Phrygian cap worn by Mithras in the Mithraic mystery. And so because those constellations and symbols also correspond to the body, that axle, that rod, then is also a symbol of the spine, and or a plumb line dropped from above the head through the body and past the feet. And so the scepter is an internal symbol of the human body, externalized so that we can see it, learn about it in a symbolic way, and make a correspondence between the astronomy that it represents and those same seals in the human body. So let's look at that prophecy in Numbers again. I shall see him, but not now. I shall behold him, but not nigh. There shall come a star out of Jacob, and a scepter shall rise out of Israel. In my previous video about the golden calf, is Jesus the golden calf, I talked about the Deuteronomistic reforms that favored the Yahwist cult against the patriarchal international religion of Israel, which was polytheistic and was the worship and recognition of familial Godhead, made of father and mother and son and daughter. And so there was a lot of correlation, a lot of correspondence between what was happening in ancient Israel and what was happening amongst its neighbors, because they were all looking at the same sky. And all of these constellations were known to them and shared amongst them as a basis, a common basis for understanding the entire cosmos and the gods that occupied it. And so this scepter that is going to be in the hands of the Messiah, I think, is the same sort of scepter as Egyptian priest or king may have held in Egypt to represent his priesthood and his divinity. So this scepter of Christ that makes him the king of the cosmos is a reflection of the astronomy of the cosmos itself and of his attainment in his own body of a mastery and comprehension of all of the mysteries of God. So the star, I think, is a particular star. And the thigh of the cow, which is the waz, which is the top of that scepter, represents the thigh of the celestial pole cow. And in the body of that celestial pole cow, the entire cosmos revolves. The very center of the cosmos, around which even the pole stars revolve, is in the shoulder of that cow and of the foreleg's shoulder. In the time of the Egyptian kingdoms, of their thriving and influence, Thuban was the pole star. Around 1000 BC, the pole shifted away from Thuban into the empty space in the abdominal zone of the celestial pole cow, where there are no stars. I believe once the pole shifted into that empty zone, that people watched year after year, decade after decade, century after century, for the appearance of a star that would become the pole star in the womb of the celestial pole cow. And I think that's what happened. And I think that's why all around the world there was an expectation and an anticipation that the king of the world had been born, because I think that there was probably some sort of celestial astronomical event in that empty space. So the Jewish temple from 1000 BC until it was destroyed ultimately in 70 AD reflected the idea that the Most High God was invisible. And I think that transition into that Yahwist cult of an invisible God has much to do with the empty space in the womb of the celestial pole cow. And then, right on time, with the new age of Pisces overcoming the age of Aries, the sheep, there was a celestial event inside the womb of that cow, like a supernova or a comet or something of that sort. And that told those astronomers and astrologers looking for this sign that the king is born. And I think from that point, people looked for someone who might be the fulfillment of that ancient and international prophecy. And I think that Yeshua, Jesus of Nazareth, was a favorite candidate to fulfill that prophecy in Numbers, because it said that the star would rise out of Jacob. So people looking for that Messiah were looking in Israel for its fulfillment. And more generally, Israel was represented by Aries, by the ram, with their ram horns that they blew, and their sacrifices of rams and lambs. And it was their cultural symbol. So, for example, it appears to me that Persia and Babylon, they were represented by the head. That's why their symbolism so frequently refers to lion symbolism, because the brain, the celestial kingdom, the seventh seal is all up in the head. And that corresponds to the constellation Leo. Egypt, the land of Chem, the black land, because of its fertile dirt from the flooding of the Nile and the decomposition of all the aquatic life on the land, and this most fertile place in the world, the breadbasket of the world, the mother of the world, was represented the bowels of fertility, of life. And so between Persia and this breadbasket of the gut of Egypt is Israel in the solar plexus. And Aries corresponds to the solar plexus nerve ganglia or chakra. And so as the age of Aries was closing out, a great sacrifice, so the ancients thought, was required of Israel, and that Israel itself would come to represent the God sacrificed so that a new God could be reborn. And so that's why ancient hierophants and teachers and priests looked to the star prophecy in Israel for the Lamb of God to be slaughtered and to rise again. And that's where we get that Christian symbolism as being fulfilled and accomplished in a messianic Jew named Yeshua. So that's how it looks to me. I'm not saying that anybody ought to or did or would agree with my vision of what the scriptures are saying, because this is an effect, a product of my study over a course of 35 years and personal experiences, mystical experiences, insights that have put this puzzle together for me in this way. So what I see the New Testament is an internal conversation, discussion that went on in Palestine about whether or not Jesus of Nazareth was the fulfillment of the star prophecy or not. And it's an amalgamation of different opinions on the subject. None of them completely agreeing, each of them having a different angle, a different perspective on the question. And then that is put together and offered up as a amalgamation of these ideas. I don't think you're supposed to say that it was all one thing, all another thing, and that it produced any particular comprehensive dogma on the matter. I think that it was deliberately intended to demonstrate the variety of Christian testimonies. So for me, the Apotheosis Scroll is just one personal idea, personal vision of who Christ was and what this amazing and phenomenal story is all about. Why has it moved and touched and offended so many billions of people? I think it was deliberately organized to engender faith as well as to challenge any particular ideology, as if that one ideology summed it all up. So I view the Apotheosis Scroll project as a way to try to demonstrate that pluralism and that subjectivity that was the original Christian movement, and to just throw my creative effort into that mix for whatever it's worth. To be scorned, to be hated by some, to be appreciated by others. I'm just offering it up. And I hope you'll engage with it. So if you want to know about the Apotheosis Scroll and what I'm doing panel by panel, then please go back to the beginning of the videos and start watching from the beginning. And over time, over years to come, I'll do formal videos on each of those digital artworks, those digital amalgamations of those paintings and essays, and I'll break it down for you inch by inch. And then other times I'll just come on here and riff and hope to get through to one or two people to give you something to converse with me about, to think about, to challenge your existing paradigms. And I hope to expand the experience of relating with Christianity beyond narrow dogma that must be defended. And I hope to have a very pluralistic and meaningful social conversation with anybody willing. And I'm grateful for those of you who watch. Please tell your friends if you think they might be interested. Please subscribe and like the videos if you do. And I look forward to talking to you again another day. Bye.